Welcome officially to Digital Wellness Day and my workshop on connecting meaningfully in the digital age. Can you all see my screen? Okay, wonderful. Just always double checking. So welcome. My name is Sophie Bowles. I'm a positive media psychologist working at Chapman University, which is located in Orange, California, in the US. And I'm also the director of research at the Digital Wellness Institute. And I'm specifically researching and teaching about the positive effects of media. And as of recently, I specialized in digital wellness, which we at the Institute define as an optimum state of health and personal fulfillment and social satisfaction that each individual using technology is capable of achieving. Now, when I'm thinking of digital wellness and applying it also to my research area, one of the things that we know from the science of positive psychology is that in order for us to feel happy and fulfilled, we need to feel connected. I'm sure you can all relate to that. And we need to just feel part of a social fabric, part of a community. And really, the more we have positive relationships in our lives, the better we feel. And so I asked myself the question that, how is it then in this digital world where we seem to be constantly connected and seem to even have these technological tools that allow us to connect so much more easily these days, that we a lot of times don't feel really connected? We actually feel more isolated, right? And we feel unhappy. And so why is that the case? And so I think it's because we don't really know what it means to meaningfully connect. And that is what I want to get into a little bit today. So here's a little bit of the agenda, what I would like for us to do. One is exploring with you the hindrances of meaningful online interactions and how to overcome them. Then I would like to share with you some of my own research on how meaningful interactions are best formed online, and provide you with some really practical hands-on tips for how you can enhance your meaningful connections in the digital world. And then also provide you with an actual new assessment tool, so that's really hot off the press, of measuring digital flourishing as it pertains to our meaningful online interactions. And so all together, we'll have some time also for Q&A at the end. This should be about an hour, 75 minutes of a workshop. And to just make sure, if you have to hop off earlier, that's obviously totally fine. I wanted to give you also a heads up of some Medicaid guidelines here of what we want to pay attention to throughout our time together. Number one is I would like to let you know that this is going to be very interactive. And so if you feel like, ooh, this is not what I signed up for, I just, want to do my breakfast in the background or just drop in, that's fine as well. But just know that there will be times where you will be asked to connect with each other. Obviously, this is a workshop on meaningful connection. So just keep that in mind, that this is part of this workshop today. And so when we are interacting with each other and connect with each other, I would like for us to do so in as much of a meaningful way as possible, which will include if possible, turning the camera on. If you want to actually say something, to raise your hand, since we are a little bit of a bigger crowd here. And if before you share anything, actually share your name and where you're from, so we get a little bit of a common ground where you are coming from. And then keep your comments brief so we can give a chance to everybody to connect. Also, of course, be respectful when you interact with each other. We're going to do breakout room activities. And never assume anything. Keep a curious and open mind, ask clarifying questions, and don't take things personally. We are interacting with a digital filter here, where a lot of nonverbals are not going to be communicated as they usually are in a face-to-face environment. And so just giving the other person the benefit of the doubt is always a helpful strategy to circumvent just kind of immediate reactions instead of responses. Lastly, I totally would like to encourage you to use your digital nonverbals to share anything that you would like to, usually would use your nonverbals to do, right? Including using your little emojis in your Zoom, or even commenting in the chat. And so this way we can feel also that we're all kind of actually connecting and doing something together. So with that said, are you ready to connect meaningfully? If so, show me some form of emoji that you can use here in your Zoom. And if you can't find the emoji at the bottom, you can also, of course, with your camera on, just, yeah, you know, show us beautiful smile or put it in the chat. There we go. Wonderful. Everybody knows how to use those wonderful emojis. That's great. Okay, so we actually stopped sharing my screen because it wouldn't be obviously a workshop on meaningful connections if we wouldn't actually do a little bit of some connecting before we get into thinking of how we can do that better also in the digital age. So I would like to play a little game with you all. Does that sound okay? Everybody up for a game? Okay. And the game is Would You Rather. Anybody knows that game? Would You Rather game? Okay, no problem. It's like the easiest game ever. I didn't know it either until my husband just totally, when we started dating, it was trying to get to know me with Would You Rather game. Also an interesting way. So Would You Rather game means I'm going to give you two choices of what you would rather like to do. And you will be showing, and so this will best work if you can show you a camera, otherwise you can just put a 1 or a 2 in the chat. If you choose option 1, you can show the number 1 finger, and if you, or number 1 finger, I don't know if there's not a number 1 finger, but just 1 finger. And if you choose option 2, you just show 2 fingers, okay? And so I just give you 2 options and which ones you generally would rather do, okay? So either option 1, 1 finger, option 2, 2 fingers. And so if you have your gallery view on, you can also obviously see everybody else's choices, and also you can check it out in the chat, all right? Okay, so first one, pretty simple. Would you rather work out or chill on the couch? So workout is 1, chill on the couch 2. Okay, okay. I know, maybe there's some that is like, it depends. It depends. Alina is like, okay. All right, seems kind of like splits here, right? Okay. Second one, would you rather, or are you rather a tea drinker or coffee drinker? So tea is 1, coffee 2. Okay, we have lots of coffees, some teas. Okay, okay, okay. Would you rather, now we're getting a little bit into more personalities here, go to a party with a bunch of people or read a book at home alone? Party or book? Okay. And this is actually a question from an introvert extrovert personality questionnaire. So whatever you now said, your initial tendency is linked with if you're more of an extrovert or more of an introvert. Depends. And there's obviously always a lot of depends. Okay. Would you rather, this is going to be, again, we're going a little deeper here. Share your life story in a book or blog, or share it on a stage as a speaker? Not sharing your life story is not an option. So share your life story in a book or blog or as a speaker. This again is going a little bit into the extrovert introvert, right? It's like, okay, okay. We'll have, I think a lot of, yeah, just you're just ready to talk to people on a stage. I love it. It's good. Okay. 2 more. Would you rather, for your friend or partner's birthday, would you rather write them a card or give them a gift? You know, some of you are like, I'm doing both. Gift? Are we gift givers or card writers? Obviously 2 love languages, right? Okay, we see more of the gift. Okay. I just had my my students do write a gratitude letter and then deliver it, and a lot of them delivered it to their mothers, obviously fitting for Mother's Day. And a lot of what they were saying is actually how it was so hard to be vulnerable and share the love that they had for their mom or their other significant other. And so that's interesting when we think of sharing a card, right? Also kind of that vulnerability component. Totally random. It's a fun fact on this side. Okay, last one here. Would you rather address something that is bothering you directly with your partner, friend, roommate, or let your dissatisfaction shine through indirectly? So are you kind of a confrontational or more passive aggressive person, basically? I'm definitely number 2, unfortunately. Okay, very nice. So as you can see, we're all different in terms of our preferences, our needs, and our way to communicate and be with other people. And this is important to keep in mind when we think about creating meaningful connections in the digital world. And we will get a little bit more into that. So first of all, question: how much time do you spend communicating with others online on an average day? And that includes professionally as well as privately, just communicating. So what do you think? Hours per day? Put it in the chat. What's your estimation? And so put the hours in the chat, note your hour, because we're gonna do something else with that hour. So how much time do you spend communicating with others online on an average per day, professionally as well as privately? Okay. So it's a rather big range, actually. Yeah, so try to just find one number. So those of you that wrote kind of 0 to 5, I know it depends. I know it depends. That's why we're talking about average, and average is never going to be necessarily that exact, because it is that range, but just for this little exercise, just find one number. So just try to make it 1. So if you're 4 to 6, maybe make it a 5. If you're 0 to 5, just make it a 3. Okay, so find your number. Okay, so keep your number. Now with that number, I'm gonna do a little math. So you may or may not need your calculator for this. Okay, so with that one number, right? That's the average hours communicating per day. Now, multiply that by 7, which will give you the amount of hours you communicate per week. Just do that. Don't put it in the chat. Just do it for yourself for just now. So the number you put times 7. Okay, that's the hours per week. Now, once you have that, multiply that by 52. And now comes the calculator, probably handy. Calculate that by 52, multiply that by 52, which gives you the hours you spend communicating per year. And because that's a really large number of hours, divide that by 24, and that will give you the days per year that you communicating online, and put that number in the chat. So again, I repeat, the hours per day you spend communicating online times 7 will give you the hours per week. Then that times 52 gives you the hours per year, and then divided by 24 gives you the days per year. So how many days per year do you communicate with others online? What do we have? Big range here. Okay. And so you can write, if you have something like, yeah, I see some 60s, some 91s here. Obviously you can divide that again also by 30, and you get kind of the months. Okay. And so, wow, yeah, 152 days a year. So you see I mean, again, there's a big range, but it certainly is rather significant. Now here comes the main question, and that's going to be I'm going to launch a poll here for you. You can see it on Zoom. How much of that time that you communicate daily / per year with others online, do you feel actually you connect meaningfully? And so if you all put 100, then I should give you the mic and you should tell us how you do that. And you cover that workshop. But of course, I'm happy for you if you feel like, and we'll learn from each other, right? So I'm very curious, those of you that put high numbers. Yeah. So that, if you just put that in the poll here. Wow, so I'll share with you the results here in a second. I can just see it on my end that it's a very large range. So those of you that are putting numbers in the chat, not sure if that's still related to the hours per year or if that's the percentage related to the question of how much of that time you connect online you feel like it's meaningfully. So if you can just put that in that poll, that would be great. So we can have that all handy here, but it's okay if that doesn't work. Okay, I'll just close it now to move on, and here are the results. So most of you say 40% say that you feel like you're connecting meaningfully online, and then the actually 80% is also very frequently, and then you see a really wide range. We have some missing numbers here that made it into the chat, so this is not completely representative of our panel here or our workshop, but at least it gives us a clue. And I guess the obviously the point that I want to make is that we are connecting, right, a lot. We are connecting a lot or communicating a lot with each other online, but it's not that we're always feeling actually connected and feel like it's very meaningful. So to start us off with a little bit of a workshop element, I would like, and we are a number of people for that, I would like for you in breakout rooms to actually talk about what are some of the hindrances of meaningful online interactions for you. And so again, when we think of meaningful online interactions, we really are thinking about interactions and or communication that allows some presence, vulnerability, and actually some form of effective communication in the sense that each member of the dyad or group feels heard. And so, right, that is kind of the underlying basis of what we understand as mindful communication, which goes into then also an understanding of meaningful connection. And so those of you obviously that put a little bit lower numbers in that you said you don't feel like you're actually connecting meaningfully a lot, what are some of those hindrances? Okay, so I created a short Google Docs for you that you can use to put in your hindrances to just make it a little systematic, but you don't have to use it. I just put that in the chat. So if you want to click on that, and you will see in that document, there are on the left side is an outline of basically breakout rooms. And so I'll put you in breakout rooms, and based on which breakout room you're in, which you will be seeing, once you're in your breakout room, it says a little number at the top. You can just go to your individual breakout room to then go and input some of your answers. If you don't feel like you want to use this Google Docs, you totally don't have to. The goal is for about 7 minutes to just chat with each other what you feel like are the hindrances of meaningful online connections. Then we'll get back together. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then of course we talk about the solutions. Okay. So this is the goal. Any questions? Make sense? Yes, working definition of meaningful communication, as I was just saying, basically it allows for vulnerability, presence, and efficiency to bring our point across. So feeling heard. These are kind of 3 things that I like to use to as basically predictors of meaningful connections is when there is space to be vulnerable and authentic, that there is space for us to actually be present so we can listen, and that on the other hand actually makes the other person heard and more likely that the point we want to make actually is coming across. And so these are kind of parameters of that predict meaningful connections. Yes. Thank you for putting this also in the chat, Sandra. Very helpful. Appreciate that. Okay, here. All right, here we go. Breakout room. So just discuss some of the hindrances of meaningful interactions. And I opened the breakout room, so you should be able to just join into them. I miss the most, or not miss the most about Zoom, not being just kicked out of the breakout room. I love this. All right, welcome back, everybody. Because mute yourself again, everybody. That would be lovely. Thank you. Okay, you should be able to see my screen. And so now I'm super curious. Can you see my screen, by the way? Yes, okay. I'm very curious to hear what you all discussed, what some of the hindrances are. I'm going to put it here on that slide. So if you want to speak up, you can just raise your hand to then speak. Again, repeat your name and where you're from, and then what you would like to share. I'll just, yes, Lionel, I'll go first.
So I think it's me, Alina. I'm based in London in the UK.
Okay.
And one of the hindrances we talked about was not putting your webcam on. So you are speaking with somebody and you cannot see their face.
Okay, yes. Totally. Great.
And I will let others comment on more. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Alina. Hi, go ahead, please.
Yeah, ours was along those lines, just in general, lack of feedback, eye contact, body language, stuff like that.
Nice, yes. Who else would like to go? Sandra.
Okay, 4 steps to get on here and say this. We had a great group. Just kind of in response to that, sometimes it's the fact that the camera is on so much, and then maybe we begin to personally assess and become self-aware of ourselves.
Yes, I love that. I love that. I love that.
That was like one example, but I just thought to give the counter, possibly mirror image to what was just mentioned. There were others, and perhaps people in my group might like to reach out. We did drop stuff into the Google Doc.
Yeah, great. Yeah, if you just, anybody else would like to share, please.
Hey, Sophie, it's Chris. For me, a big part of it is those lovely liminal moments we used to have, kind of the transitions between meetings before, where we don't have any kind of grounding when we first go into a call, which kind of brings us back to that idea of closer to almost the system one of heuristics and reacting instead of responding.
Yeah.
Very different to how you started this call, because you did the check-in and asked how everyone was and where we're from. So, but quite often that's not the case.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Anybody else? And we'll get to the solutions here in a second. Yep, I love it. Everyone's like, I don't want to talk about hindrances. Let's talk about solutions. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. We'll move on that. No problem. Well, okay, this is great as a start. So a couple of things that my research that is related to also the how can we overcome some of those challenges. First, we have to really find what are the challenges. We have to be very specific about it so we can find specific, obviously, solutions, right? And think about it. And so a lot of the specifics that you now mentioned are also things that in broader categories would be described as, if we're digitally overwhelmed, that Zoom fatigue, that being too much on the camera, that hinders meaningful interactions, because also, as Chris was saying, it gets us into the reaction mode and not in actually a presence mode where we can choose how we want to show up, respond, and connect with somebody else, and have really that open mindset to notice, have some self-awareness, notice where maybe we are triggered, but it's actually not on the other person. For that, right, we actually need space. And so in this world where we are constantly connected, we do feel digital overwhelm because we are on Zoom the whole time and we have back-to-back meetings without breaks in between, then this is hindering really that space for meaningful interactions to happen. It also is kind of a component of the self-regulation piece, which goes a little bit more into also technology and how it's programmed us to be having a harder time to letting go. I mean, one thing is to have our calendar stacked with all these meetings and having to connect maybe with colleagues, right, constantly. But the other thing is also the dopamine hit that we get from checking our emails, and of course translated that to social media on the other hand as well, which makes us, again, mindless consumers. And anything that's done in mindless automatic way, Chris was talking about heuristic processing, right? It's kind of that fast-paced judgment making that doesn't allow for that space to actually connect in a way that there's felt presence, there's felt resonance, and therefore felt meaning that has been created. One of the things I was talking about also before is that component of digital filter, and digital filters are huge with obviously now Zoom and online communication. It actually is related to the body language comment that you were making, right? The digital filter is really what we are perceiving right now. There is just a little image of ours. So you can see my hand moving in weird ways here and there, but not really any of the other body language. In addition, there's sound delays, there's weird lighting, right? The pictures are really small. We don't really see any of the facial expressions. All these type of things actually contribute to Zoom fatigue, but there's certainly something we can do about it. And then another big aspect that I wanted to just mention is communication expectations and norms of how we're supposed to interact online. Now, communication expectations is something we actually never take time to reflect on and make specific communication plans specifically in the workforce. There's just a lot of times very subtle tone that implies that we should maybe be online 24/7, that we should check our emails at 11 p.m. at night, or it's just never really specifically mentioned, but we do it anyways because we just feel like that is the culture. And so those communication expectations, specifically actually if you think of also very young adults or teenagers, right? If somebody texts the other person and then you don't get an immediate text message back, the immediate interpretation is they don't like me anymore. I've did something wrong, something is horribly bad in our relationship, whereas the person might have just been busy. And so these communication expectations, if they are not actually arranged and communicated beforehand, can lead to a lot of trouble in communication. Not trouble is maybe not the right word, but interference. And so norms is another one, specifically again also for younger adults within the social media context, but also in the professional arena, that a lot of times norms hinder for us to show up in authentic ways. And showing up authentically, meaning true to ourselves and sharing, I'm not really having a good day today, and that's a-okay. I just wanted to share that and let you know so you don't have to feel like it, anything, it's nothing to do with you, it's just me. If we don't have space to share that, then we engage in manipulation of ourselves, in showing up in always just a positive way, right? And that can be very harmful for our personal mental health. And so that is also something that we can think about to remedy so we can actually connect more meaningfully. So what are now the things? You seem to already have talked in your breakout rooms how to change some of those or counter those those hindrances. So I'll put you back in your breakout rooms for just like, let's say 4 minutes, 5 minutes. And so if you just can talk again more about some of the solutions that you feel like helped you for some of those hindrances you talked about, or maybe that come to mind now having gone through this this list of other hindrances. So just talk a little bit about solutions, and then I'll give you the ones that I came up with or I found in my research, and also how we can assess that. Okay, so just going back, just 5 minutes. I'll put a timer once everybody's there. First, Lava, I don't know which room you were in, but I'm just going to put you in room 1. Oh, okay, got it. You should be able to type in the chat, but that's okay if you don't want to join. No problem, no problem. And got I'll just try and put you in room 1. Start my timer. All right, I'm going to try to mute everybody. If you can mute yourself to help me out, that would be wonderful. And of course, I would like to, did I get everybody? Now I would like to really know what solutions you came up with. May I ask, I feel like Sandra, you were so kind last time to put the definition, what I was saying in the chat. Maybe you would be so kind to actually put some of the answers in the chat so everybody can follow. I don't know if Sandra is still here. Yeah, it was Sandra. Sandra, would you be able to do that? Yay, awesome. All right, yeah, no problem. Okay, so what are some solutions? Anybody who would like to start?
Start.
Yes, Rana, please.
Okay. Well, basically, as I mentioned to the team, when I'm typing when I'm chatting with someone, I'm trying to get my point across. Sometimes I can't, or for some reason because of myself or the other person. So that to satisfy myself, I just pick up the phone and I call that person. Then after that, I could talk more freely. I could express myself better, and I get my point across.
Okay, very nice. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And Sandra is so kind to put that in the chat. Appreciate it. Who else would like to go? What are some solutions? Lionel, please go ahead. I'm sorry if I'm totally not pronouncing your name correctly.
No, actually, it's the right way. Thank you. And I'm sorry for the background and the noise. The meeting caught me outside. So if I show you the background, it's really noisy. So
No
I would like
problem.
to switch off my my video first. Yeah, I would just like to mention what one of our group partners said. She suggested that maybe involving into meditation quite often can help us get connected to people a little bit better, and try to. I mean, it puts us in a position where we actually a little bit more open to people, even strangers, and as well as being a little bit more authentic. So meditation. Now the choice of what kind of meditation, what to focus on. Yeah, I think we mentioned focusing on the positive. So if we meditate focusing on the positive, then we see the positive into people, and we are really open to connect a little bit easier with those people.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lionel. That's great. Yes. So meditation, and we have science that supports that, right? Specifically, loving kindness meditation has been shown to actually make people literally more connected. There's a love and kindness paper by Barbara Fredrickson out that shows exactly that. It's fascinating. So very cool. Anybody else? One more person, and then I'll share my 2 cents on that based on my research. One more person. One more tip and trick. How do you connect meaningfully with each other online? No. So before you were all so, oh, I have all the solutions. I think Alina said in the chat, set expectations at the start of a meeting. Very good. Limit recording aspect of Zoom meetings. Well, so Dennis, do you want to elaborate on that?
Well, when the meetings are recorded, one tends to naturally become a little bit more guarded. Because you have to be careful, especially in a work environment. You have to be careful what you say. And I think that lessens spontaneity. I just see it more as a hindrance than the so-called benefit of being able to go back and look at it later.
Interesting. Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Totally. Okay, so let me give you my rundown, which is a little bit more systematically based on obviously the hindrances that we just went through. Can you see my screen? Awesome. Okay, so basically based on what I found in my research, I'm going to go through how to tackle basically these 3 major hindrances as larger categories. One is if we are overwhelmed digitally all the time because we're constantly in meetings and we have a hard time self-regulating when we use our phones, when we not use our phones, before bedtime, eating, with kids, without kids, all that good stuff, then one of the things that can help us to stop or get over this hindrance is gaining back self-control. And so there are obviously a lot of things we can do. These are all specific recommendations that actually are all written in our amazing toolkit, which you can access in the link that I just put in the chat, which I just put out a couple here that are specifically related to this point. I'm not going to go through all of them. You can totally just look at that at your leisure by, again, checking out the link that I just put in the chat. But one of the things, of course, is really managing our distractions in a better way. Again, setting aside screen time, free time, and really scheduling into our calendar off-screen time, recuperation time, and when we'll check our emails, when we're not checking our emails, right? All these type of things. That link didn't work, goes to search. I apologize. So if you want to go to the Digital Wellness Day website, there should be, you can find the toolkit over there as well. Unfortunately, I can't multitask right now to find the other link. So my apologies for that. So I'm just going to continue because the main really fun, important part here is that when we actually gain back self-control, what the research has shown is it can predict a specific component of well-being, which here is the component of autonomy. According to positive psychology, we're motivated to act in this world because we seek to satisfy certain intrinsic needs. Those intrinsic needs are universal to all human beings. While those needs might find expression differently across different individuals, everybody is really seeking out those needs. So one of those needs is autonomy, which refers to having a sense of control, volition, and freedom when we're engaged in an activity, aka self-control, how and when we're using our technology. Okay, so the second one is related to how can we deal better with the issue of Zoom fatigue, digital filter, of just not being able to be fully present, to have the missing body language that we obviously don't have with our online interactions. And that is actually, we can learn a whole lot in how to communicate better in an online environment. We call that digital literacy, which really just means that we learn skill sets of how to manage literally our screens better. It's kind of like back in the day when the phone came first out And we had to learn how to do the T9, right? And then T9 stopped and everybody's like, oh God, how can I now do not T9? And you had to learn how to type on the phone. These are skills we can learn. And so specific skills that help with also that digital filter and connect more meaningfully are related to minimizing Zoom fatigue, right? It's turning actually off the speaker view so we don't see ourselves all the time, which is completely unnatural, because in the everyday life, when we are interacting with other people, we don't see ourselves. And if we see ourselves all the time, we constantly engage in impression management, making sure that we're actually looking good and speaking good. And so that is cognitively taxing. So taking that away will help us to actually be more present and focus on the other people rather than ourselves. There's a couple of other aspects here you can see, and you can also, again, check out in the tool box or toolkit if anybody would like to venture out to find the link in the Digital Wellness Day website and plug it in here. That would be lovely. Other things are engaging in positive social comparison. Social comparison is something that researchers, or really the news media, is talking about a lot as being detrimental to our well-being, specifically as it applies to social media. But actually, lots of research has shown that this social comparison can also be really positive. And so we can compare to people that we feel inspired by, and that leads us to actually more inspiration and vitality. And so you just have to learn how to do that. Their third point, and so this actually leads to, again, a need satisfaction of competence. And competence, again, is a well-being predictor, and that is related to perceiving ourselves as effective and manipulating the environment in the way that results in valued outcomes. I know it's already an hour up, so if you have to leave, totally feel free. I'm going to upload the presentation as well, but I'm going to continue for those of you that can stay. Lastly, we have the communication expectations and norms hindrance, which can also be tackled by providing and building an environment of trust. How do we build an environment of trust online? Maybe, as Dennis said, not recording sessions as much, but again, then also recording sessions can be helpful for later viewing. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword here. But one of the things we can do is prioritize meaningful interactions, which can be things like to avoid phubbing. So phubbing is when we look at our phone while we're interacting with another person in real life. So instead, we can be intentional of not using our phone in every time that we interact with other people. We can also practice being more authentic in the way that we share. So that vulnerability piece, right? And a lot of times it just takes one person with a little bit of courage to share something a little bit more vulnerable, and the other person will totally share as well. And that openness suddenly creates much more of a meaningful interaction. Other things also, like investing in social support. Lots of research shows that in a work environment, the thing we feel like doing at least is after work, connecting with our colleagues, but actually that helps to further the connection within teams and build a much more positive work atmosphere. And so, yes, it requires effort, but it pays off big time at the back end. And then also, to really get into these norms and communication expectations, we can engage in communication charter activities where we really sit down with the team and everybody is outlining what their priority is and how they would like to communicate. Would they like to be contacted via text versus via email? When are times when they're off limits? When are times that are best for them to connect? And that will help us to stay accountable as well. So that also relates or helps with satisfying this need of relatedness, which is really just a sense of connection and care towards others and feeling cared for by others. So together, really, we can basically say that if we engage in these specific practices, like setting aside screen-free places or turning off notifications that are not essential, then that helps us to gain back self-control, and on the other hand, also satisfy our autonomy needs. And that helps us to feel more meaningfully connected. When we turn off our self-view during meetings or unfollow profiles that don't inspire us, we can increase our digital literacy, and that our need for competence can be satisfied. And again, that helps us to feel more meaningfully connected. And lastly, and we avoid phubbing or check up on colleagues via text, and actually build some effort into connecting with others, and be that person, that first person that's starting that cycle, and being authentic and vulnerable in the way that we're sharing. That builds a community or an environment of trust, which satisfies our need for relatedness. And all of that together, I have found to actually relate to what I call digital flourishing. And that is specifically digital flourishing as it relates to mediated social interactions that satisfy those innate needs. And so I created a survey, which is basically just being published, but I wanted to give you kind of a preview of this validated survey. It has been validated with 800 people already. And so here's a link. And I know we're out of time. A lot of people already leave, but I wanted to give you this link, and so you can check it out here by yourself. My idea was to then see where we're all at, but I'm not gonna do that right now because want to be respectful of your time. But check out the link. This should be working, and you can just do that on your own time. You can have the results sent to you via email, and actually, when you do that, you will be getting the toolkit link, because that one is also in there. And that will give you an understanding of where you are at in terms of your satisfaction with your mediated social interactions. Romina, the survey, it's not published yet, so I would probably want you to wait before you translate it in Spanish, just so that you wouldn't have to do it again. But if you just want to use it for your internal way to just go for it, you can totally do that. I'd rather want to do it actually so that we could even publish it, so it's accessible to a lot of other people. So you can kind of do it kind of for maybe a group of people there. But yeah, I would love to do that kind of in a more systematic way. So thanks for that question. So in some meaningful connections in the digital world, how do we do that? In the end, it really comes down to a mindful and intentional engagement with others and with our devices. It's about being vulnerable, showing up authentically, and giving and seeking support. It's about considering other people's viewpoints and experiences, and focusing on others more so than ourselves. The world is not revolving around us, right? We have to really get out of that childish mindset. We can learn how to use our tech in better ways to interact meaningfully, and with things like engaging in positive social comparison or knowing how to phub less by having phone-free spaces in the house, we can totally do that in a very easy way. And in the end, we have to understand that everybody seeks to satisfy their intrinsic needs. And so the more we can respect that and remember that in conversations, the more intimacy and connections we can build. And, oh, sorry. Let me stop sharing here. With that, yeah, I'm closing this, and I know we're totally out of time. Thanks for you that have been able to stay. Any questions you might have?